I would be thinking about you as I was recovering.
Yeah, that's what I, that's the
On Game Controllers. Here, there's app library and widgets on your home screen.
Going more so on you, what made you go into this path of teaching drugs and alcohol and going to UK teaching and writing your own book now?
Well, that's what we're supposed to do as history professors. You write books. So we're supposed to spend about half of our time teaching and half of our time doing research and writing books and articles. And so I trained to do early modern European history. My first book was about Spain. I looked at sort of dueling and honor and violence in Spain in the 17th century. And that book was finished in 2008. And when I was looking around for someone else to do, I thought, I'd like to do something that sort of was a little bit bigger than just Spain, and also would incorporate sort of like all sorts of different things like empire, the growth of European empires overseas, the growth of trade around the world with Europe becoming the center of that, and also sort of the body and religion, gender, all sorts of things coming together with Europeans putting these sort of new substances into their bodies, which they hadn't had before. All these things are new to them. And it'd be an interesting way to get at a bunch of different stuff.
Okay. So why drugs and alcohol? Like, was there something that's like, there's something that clicked in you that said, I'm curious and learning more about the history of drugs and alcohol and how it originated from Europe or some of these other countries? Why did you decide to go down that path?
The idea of addiction was interesting because it's something we still don't really quite understand. We have this medical model of, addiction as an illness, but that's a sort of recent idea. We talked about it in the class, how that came about in like the 18th century and 19th century, when people in Western Europe and the United States got that idea of illness, since they used to think of it just as a moral failing. And still those two ideas of what addiction is are battling out in our culture today. And people who are experts on this are still changing their minds, and some of them are trying to break away a little bit from the model of addiction as a disease. And so it's sort of like, this thing we still don't understand. If I can get to the history of that with drugs and alcohol and the will and how their minds work, right? It's sort of like really sort of basic, getting inside people's heads with studying drugs and alcohol. That's what made it so interesting.
And it is very interesting because, like you said, now addiction is becoming a more science-based. And with you in your class, if you have uncovered of drugs and alcohol and just studying the addiction throughout time, whether it be from like the first known drugs of like tea or coffee to now today we're seeing like opioids or cocaine, it's very intriguing how to see how these types of drugs and alcohol affect people's minds.